If you are tuning into the Doc Talk Podcast right now on YouTube, do yourself a favor and go ahead and give this video a like. It's that simple. Just hit that like button. Bing, right there. If you want to leave a comment in the section of anything I say or Dr. Rob has to say, leave a comment. And most of all, take time to subscribe. We're now over 5,000 subscribers on the Doc Talk Sports YouTube page. Thank you so much for those of you who have subscribed, and it's good to have you along. Dr. Rob, we're a little late in the week recording a podcast. We normally do these on Sundays right after the game. Nebraska didn't play last week. I was in Savannah, Georgia for the weekend, so we're getting together on a Tuesday evening.
How was the weekend?
Savannah, Georgia was absolutely wonderful. It was about between 85 and 82 every day. Humid as hell. Humid as hell. And then we went down to Tybee Island, and we were on the beach, walked the beach for a couple miles, and then watched people surf. They were getting in the ocean without wetsuits on, so it must have been fairly warm. But most of all, my daughter committed to the Savannah College of Art and Design. I paid the
Congrats.
I paid the enrollment fee. I paid the housing deposit. Then I looked at what I owed, and I'm fucked. It is basically what it comes down to. I am fucked.
Anyway, hit that subscribe button because we need the YouTube revenue.
Here's the deal. She's the last one, so she's the baby, right? So she gets more than everybody else because that's the way it works out. But it was one of those things where she really wants to go to school there, and I just said, let's do it, and we'll figure it out. We've got about 10 months to figure this thing out.
Well, you guys are rich. I mean, you guys did private school all the way through.
Yeah, that's where all my money went. Duchesne Academy, Marion High School, and Creighton Prep have all my retirement.
Do you know who's got my retirement?
The National Football League. They're holding on to it and drawing interest for you.
I've got it because we went to public school.
Yeah, I know. But you're also a doctor and you make like 10 times more than I do.
I don't know if it's 10 times.
I bet it's pretty damn close. I bet it.
I don't know. I do okay.
Yeah, you do. You do okay.
I mean, I'm not like making $1 million a year.
Yeah, but
I just surprised you with that, didn't I? You were like, wait, you don't?
You don't? You're doing so good that you go to the hospital every day and you don't even have to shave. I mean, you walk in with a half-grown beard and a half-grown head of hair.
I walk into an operating room, mask goes up.
Man, it's good. You live the good life. You really do. So I had a great weekend because I was in Savannah, and then you had a great weekend because you went up to Augustana to watch your son play, and Augustana clinch a share of the conference title.
They did. First time since 1942 they've gone back to back.
Really?
It's a pretty that whole conference. So we've talked about this a bunch of times. So the conference they're in, if you're local here in Nebraska, it's the Northern Sun Conference. So it's basically kind of what.
The old North Central Conference. Yeah,
the old North Central that UNO was in merged to when Trev killed UNO, and then basically the bulk of the Dakota schools all went to 1AA. But I mean, it's like Wayne State, Bemidji, Mankato, a lot of names that I think people in the Omaha area are going to remember just from when UNO had football. But all those teams are still in it. And Augustana, they clinched a share of the conference title this week and beat their, I'd say, crosstown rivals, University of Sioux Falls, which is where Caleb DeBoer kind of cut his teeth and won a few national titles back when Sioux Falls was an NAIA school.
Which I think is a great story that, and I know it's been told, but like Lance Leipold at Wisconsin Whitewater, Caleb DeBoer at Sioux Falls. I mean, you've got guys, Kurt Signetti.
I was just going to say Signetti.
Yeah.
You got these guys who are at some of these smaller schools, which, dude, winners win.
Yes, they do.
And they win wherever they're at. And I know, like, you look at some of these guys with Leipold, maybe a little bit of a hiccup this year. But, I mean, I think Kansas is still actually a solid team. They've been in every game more or less.
Yeah, they've blown a lot of leads in the fourth quarter. Almost blew a lead to Iowa State last week, but pulled off the upset. They have BYU this weekend, so that'll be interesting to watch Kansas go out to BYU. They can score points. They can put up yards. They just got to finish games. So it'll be interesting to see how that really kind of unfolds. You may notice we've got a couple beer cans on the table today. We've got beer in the studio for the first time in a long time. And I got to thank Jason Jeremias. He's from Nebraska, and he was back right around the Halloween time. but he's from Alaska. And he wrote the Doc Talk email address, which is doctalksports@gmail.com. He says, hey, do you guys want some Alaskan beer?
Yes.
I'm still not drinking. Can you believe this? I went to Savannah. I didn't have any alcohol. I had 0 alcohol in Savannah. Now, if you guys have been to Savannah.
Please tell me you ate some seafood. You're on the coast.
I didn't have any seafood. I know.
I am disappointed.
I did
highly.
have. You know what? I've been craving pizza, so I actually got some pizza at Vinny A Go-Go's.
Good?
Yeah, it was really good. I had a hot dog. For some reason, I went to this restaurant.
Okay, you've been going through like this incredible weight loss journey.
Yes.
You've lost
About 55.
55 pounds.
Yeah.
You big alcohol restriction as well, because alcohol is loaded with calories.
Yes.
You'll have, I've been with you, you'll have a bourbon on occasion.
Bourbon, vodka I'll drink, but I rarely go off the food diet. But I'm like,
you go on a trip, and instead of, you're on the coast, instead of eating food that's like packed with protein and omega-3s,
I carved up.
Pizza and a fucking hot dog?
And a hot dog. I know. For some reason, I felt like a hot dog. I'll say this about Savannah. This is a weird thing about Savannah, Georgia, is that it's not like a food capital of the world. Like, you go to New Orleans.
I'm a little surprised.
No,
and I do.
You know what the majority of the restaurants are?
I'm like 99% sure. I have never been to Savannah.
The majority of the restaurants are brunch. It's like breakfast all the time. So,
which I do love breakfast foods.
Yeah, so
I love my brunch items.
One time I had like a sunny side up egg over risotto. That was really,
that sounds outstanding.
It was really, really good. So I did a lot of carbs, which is more than I've done in a long, long time. And I don't know, none of the seafood really, I was going to get some oysters, but they were like $40 for the dozen. And my son, Owen, who's here with us, he knows how big of a cheap ass I am. I'm like, I'm not going to do $40 for the dozen. That's just a bit.
Doesn't get it for half that here in Omaha.
I know. I go down to Shucks.
Yeah.
And spend like a $1 during happy hour, $1 an oyster. So, but we got Jason Jeremiah sent us some beer, and this is Alaskan beer. What are you starting with?
So I got Denali Brewing Company. They're out of Talkeetna, Alaska. It's their hazy IPA.
Can they still call it Denali? Didn't they get rid of the name Denali? Didn't the government change the name Denali?
I thought it was still Mount Denali. I know this. The Denali Brewing Company is still calling it In the Shadow of Mount Denali.
Okay, that's good.
Anyway, it's a great hazy.
It's a hazy IPA. What's the ABV on this?
So ABV 7.3. I was looking for an IBUs. I'm not seeing an IBUs, but that's okay. It's kind of good. Okay, so the painting on the can.
Yeah.
So that's actually Mount Huntington, which is apparently is another mountain next to Denali.
Okay.
Painted by the painting's local Talkeetna artist, pilot, and mountaineer, Legan Fowley painted this. So they're doing local painters for the cans for the can art. But God, that's a tasty hazy IPA. I like that a lot.
So Owen's drinking the Panty Peeler. What a great name, the Panty Peeler, which features a naked woman riding a reindeer.
It's a Belgian ale.
It's a Belgian ale. It's a triple, and it's from Midnight Sun Brewing. This is going to be your next one, and this is packed with alcohol too. It's 15 IBUs, but 8.5% by volume.
That might be just pack it home and have that once I get home. I don't have your basement to sleep this shit off in.
You've got 3 more sitting over there too.
We're still hanging out on the good graces of MCL Construction.
That's right. I wonder if they're getting sick of us using this as a studio. You know, the boss was walking downstairs. All I need you to do is keep telling stories like you were telling the boss, and so he's happy when you tell him, you know, how big you were back in the day.
Which, in all seriousness, you've got like the most gracious company on the planet.
I do
to work for.
I do.
And I say that because you look at the charity work they do. This place churns out the charity giving, the hosting, all of that. They let us hang out here. Which I'm always impressed by that. But anyway, big thanks to MCL Construction for being gracious host to the podcast for the last few months.
And
here.
probably for the foreseeable future, because we're making zero progress on the studio. Zero.
I'm just going to start coming in on Sunday mornings.
Do you just want to start? You want to help Owen? Because he doesn't want my help, because he knows how good of a helper I am. I'm like worthless. So I think
I can sweat copper pipes. Fun fact, that's one of Rob's skill sets.
Really?
Yeah.
But I don't think we have any plumbing in that room. We have
that's
zero.
the kicker. I don't think you need any pipes sweated.
Can you do any electrician work?
Okay, so that's one of the things that is decidedly not my strong suit. I will kill myself if I try to do electrical work.
Yeah, we need a little.
I mean, if you ask me to like switch out like outlets or light switches, I can do that.
Can you tape drywall?
I can't. My younger brother did that. That was sort of like a bridge career for him. He spent a year as a framer and drywall guy.
John?
Yeah.
John was a framer and then went and sold medical equipment?
Yeah, so when he came out of college, he had a quick stint in the NFL, tore a bunch of ligaments in his foot. And so this was back when they had the old World League.
Yeah.
At the time, it was NFL Europe.
Yeah.
So he tore a bunch of ligaments in his foot, comes back. He was with the Arizona Cardinals. And at that time, it was sort of okay, well, we're going to send you back. You're coming off an injury. You're going down to the minors for a bit. See how you're looking, then we'll bring you back up. And so in the spring and summer, they'd send all those guys over to Europe, and he was with the Berlin Thunder. He gets about 2/3 of the way through the season, tears an ACL. Gets that repaired. Comes back, rehabs the heck out of it, goes back over to Europe the next year. And I think at that time he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. Gets halfway through that season with the Berlin Thunder, tears his other ACL, rehabs that, goes back over there, and he got maybe, I think he said like a month in, and it was just like, okay, you know what? 2 ACLs. He'd had a shoulder surgery at that point as well, too, and he was just like, okay, the body parts aren't quite working like they used to work. I'm calling it a day. Retires. And it's sort of one of these, okay, wait, now I need a job. And so he just he'd put some feelers out there for a couple of things. And in the meantime, he went to work for a local construction company in Lincoln doing framing and drywall for about a year.
Maybe he can donate his services and come over and help Owen frame that thing.
I legit do not know if John's done this for, 20 years now.
I tell you what, we get a lot of cool emails at doctalksports@gmail.com, and most of them are, hey.
And a lot of cool, which, by the way, huge thanks to Jeremiah. This is the Denali Brewing is outstanding.
But I got a weird one this week from Dan, and Rob almost spits up his beer. So just to let everybody know. Just to let everybody know.
It's not weird.
Just so everybody knows, it's doctalksports@gmail.com, but I'm like the filter, right? So if Rob really needs to go, I'll send it to his personal email address, which we don't give out. We have a generic one for the podcast, and I'm the one that sees that stuff. And Dan sent this email, said, hey, I'm just going to paraphrase, I was your wedding videographer back in 1995, and he sent a full digitized version of your wedding. And I'm like, oh my God, is this really the wedding? And I click on the video link, and I watched your entire wedding, and I watched Jen dancing, all that stuff. The stuff people are coming up with is amazing.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
I haven't watched that in a while.
Well, the cool thing is it's now on a digital copy for you.
Which which I did see the email because you did forward.
I did.
And Dan did say, he goes, I think your wife requested this at some point, and I totally forgot about it.
Well, now she has it. So I got to watch Rob get married. I wasn't there at the time. I knew Rob at the time, but I wasn't there. I would take it if you were to renew your vows. I would be invited. The whole family would be invited because you're like a member of the family.
Okay, so the wedding story, and we've told this story to like 1,000 people, so it's not like it's a huge secret, but my wife's father, I did the old school, went to his office at work, I literally booked an appointment with him, and went to his office to do the official asking for his daughter's hand in marriage. And we'd been dating at the time probably for probably about 4 years. And so, I mean, we were good friends, knew each other very well, but I kind of wanted to do the official thing. And
you wanted to be proper.
Yeah.
You wanted to be a gentleman.
And so I officially asked for her hand in marriage. She very graciously gives me permission. And then we just, like we would always, we're just hanging out BSing and talking. And he goes, hey, and keep in mind, this would have been 1994.
Okay.
At the time.
Had you been drafted yet?
Ooh, no. Actually, this probably, it would have been late 1993 or early 1994. So I'm saying that more from dollar inflationary standpoint. He goes, listen, if you guys elope, I'll just cut you a check for $10,000.
Really?
Yeah. And at the time it was, I'm like,
being the cheap ass you are, if you don't know this, Rob is a cheap ass.
I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, that sounds outstanding. And at the time it was one of those, she wanted that classic wedding. And so the white dress, church reception, etc. And so we did all of that. And it's funny because she and I have talked about this multiple times since, and the discussion's always gone back to, why didn't we just do like a small private ceremony on like a beach somewhere? Something really cool like that.
And taking the $10,000. And
then taking the $10,000.
See?
Anyway, I think our advice for our kids is going to end up being like, and it is interesting. You go back and look at the video. It is kind of cool. And there's some great stories that came out of that night.
Uyghur was in your wedding. Sty was in your wedding. Joel Wilkes was in your wedding. The whole pipeline was there.
So this was back in the day, like where...
That was the largest groomsmen assembly I've ever seen in my life.
Well, so what you would do, this was literally, so for the wedding invite, it's one of those, okay, you got to pay for invites. Those things aren't cheap.
They didn't have Shutterfly back then. My daughter did all hers on Shutterfly.
Oh, absolute genius. So it was basically so we did all the invites for the quote unquote invited guests. And then you'd go, so I was in a fraternity. My wife was in a sorority. I was on the football team.
Do you have 600 people at your wedding?
So you would go put up a sign-up sheet in the fraternity house, the sorority house, and the football locker room bulletin board. And so when anybody on the football team got married, legit, you'd have like half the football team would show up.
That's a big food bill.
Like
so that's a big beer and food bill.
Okay, so additional side story to that. I'll get to that in a second, but anybody on the football team in that era, like anytime anybody got married, everybody and their dog from the football team would show up. So like for all of our, Sty did it right. He and his wife, who are both from Orange County, California, both of them went back to Orange County to get married. So there was like
suckers.
So there was like 5 of us from the football team there. Anyway, anybody who got married locally, it's like there was a caravan that would show up from the football team because it's like, hey, we're going to go celebrate so-and-so's wedding. Anyway, at the reception, one of the side items we had gotten on the dinner buffet, I'm going to misprint it. It was like crab croquettes. It was basically these little phyllo dough wrapped lump crab meat wrapped in phyllo dough. Freaking delicious. These are like the tastiest little food items I've ever had.
Not cheap, I bet, either.
Not cheap at all. During the reception, the catering host for the hotel, we had it at the Cornhusker Hotel in Lincoln. So the catering host keeps coming around during the reception, like every 20 minutes to my wife and I, and they're like, we're out of the crab croquettes again. It's like the only thing we keep running out of. Do you want us to bring out another pan? And we're like, my father-in-law is going to kill me. Yeah, fine. Yeah. Every 20 minutes. Hey, we're out of the crab again. Do you want another pan? Okay. Yeah, fine. Okay, do it. Over and over and over and over. I bet we racked up, no joke, probably like a $2,000 bill just on this one food item. At some point in the evening, one of the guys on the football team comes to me, and I can't remember if it was Wiegert, if it was Sty, if it was a Peter brother. I can't remember. Rob, this is awesome. We're having a blast. Really appreciate you inviting everybody. The food is amazing. By the way, those are the best damn tater tots I've ever had. And walks away. And my wife and I are sitting there going, tater tots? We do not have fucking tater tots on the damn buffet menu. I don't even think the Cornhusker Hotel had tater tots. We're like, what the hell are they? Oh my God, it's that people think these are tater tots. So people like the whole football team, my fraternity, my wife's sorority, they're all going through the line and go, oh, great, look, tater tots, and grabbing like ginormous handfuls of these
that'd
things.
be one you take like 2 or 3 and just in
they think this shit's tater tots, so they're hammering these things.
Orida donated tater tots to the Zatechka wedding.
God. Anyway, so yeah, I think the Cornhusker like made a massive profit off of tater tots that night.
You'll appreciate this. The only extra thing we had for our wedding, being my wife's Czech and your Czech, is that we had Eminger's Bakery make kolaches for
Nice.
every table. So we had poppy seed and like cherry kolaches for every table. You heard Dr. Rob say earlier that he walks.
We haven't even talked about football.
Oh, we're going to get to football,
cow.
but we got to get to our sponsors first, because you heard Dr. Rob say he walks into surgery, puts the mask up. You may not be able to see his face, but you can see his shoes, and he's wearing G-Defy shoes. I'm wearing G-Defy shoes. Owen's wearing G-Defy shoes. We want you to wear G-Defy shoes, because when you wear G-Defy shoes, you're going to alleviate your hip pain. You're going to alleviate your knee pain.
Ankle pain.
You're just going to feel a lot better, because that's what G-Defy does. It's a great company that specializes in making you feel better when you walk, when you run, and they're stylish. So if you want to learn more about G-Defy, go to gdefy.com. That's GDEFY.com. A lot of styles right there. They got a 60-day money-back guarantee. You won't be disappointed. We get emails each and every week about everybody who's purchased G-Defy and now enjoying the G-Defy life. Go to gdefy.com. When you check out on an order of $100 or more, use the promo code DocTalk20. That's DocTalk20, all caps, DocTalk20, and get $20 off your order. And you can keep reusing that promo code each and every time you order. So gdefy.com. You know, a lot of stuff happened since we last talked. The last time we actually talked was Behind the Point Spread a week ago, and that was the day after that Dana Holgorsen got hired as an offensive consultant. Dana Holgorsen is now the offensive coordinator of Nebraska. It took 6 days for Matt Rule to make a mistake. Let's start, or make a mistake. That's a Freudian slip. Sorry about that. To make a change. Let's start with Matt Rule. And that is, you make this change 6 days into hiring him as a consultant.
Okay. First off, I'm calling bullshit on hiring him as a consultant, because he brought him in from day one to be the O coordinator.
I would agree with you on that. But the original thing was...
I know the phraseology.
Yeah, it's I'm going to the phraseology. Let's start with Matt Rule. This definitely shows a sense of urgency that Nebraska football is under right now. Would you agree or disagree with that? Because I believe that.
I would say yes. At the same time, here's the other thing, too, is I think he's sitting here going, okay, the Satterfield experiment's not working out. We're going to need another O coordinator. Do you wait till after the season to see if a guy like Holgorsen gets, I'm going to call him Dana. I'm going to screw up Holgorsen every time I say it. You wait till after the season, Dana's going to get snapped up by somebody.
Well, and that's
you do it now. You bring him in as a consultant, and you've got him on your staff then, and then it's one of those, okay, we got you here. Guess what? You're the new O coordinator. Now,
keep in mind, but there's still you start off 5-1. Everybody's happy,
and he doesn't go to Oklahoma State to take over when Gundy
listen. If you think Dana Holgorsen is going to be a long-term solution for Nebraska's offense, you're crazy. This guy wants to be a head coach, and he'll be a head coach again.
I agree.
And so this is like a year, 2 year max if things turn around.
But if he can help us get turned around, in my mind, that's worth it.
But when you start 5-1 and then you go to 5-4 and you are in danger of not making a bowl game, there's a sense of urgency that you have the talent there. You've got to do something offensively, because in the last 2 losses, Nebraska's only averaged, 14, just over a little bit over 14 points a game. That's not going to cut it. The offense has been stale. It's been stagnant, and they need a little jolt. And I like the move because the leadership is hard, right? And this is where a CEO makes a really, really good decision. You assess your situation each and every day. Are you moving in the right direction? If you're not, you have to make a change, because if not, you risk culture, you risk disenfranchisement from or players become disenfranchised. You're also looking at your quarterback, who you're like, okay, we have to not. He's here, but you got to keep recruiting him each and every year.
Keep him here.
Yes,
and I do think this is a big recruiting move for Raiola. But I really do go back to the fact that I think you need to get a name guy who can shake things up a bit. And I think Holgorsen's somebody that can do that. You talk about the sense of urgency to have to make a move like this. I do think there's a sense of urgency. They want to go to a bowl game. They want to get that 6th win. I think they were thinking 2-3 weeks ago, okay, you know what? We're okay. We're going to get to 7, maybe 8 wins. And then all of a sudden you're sitting here going, oh shit, we're right where we were last year. What if we max out at 5? This is not the direction we want to be moving in year 2. We really want to get that 6th win and go to the bowl game. So I guess here's my question for you.
Okay.
How do you define this being a successful?
That beer's already kicking in, man.
Well, now I'm looking at the panty peeler here. How do you define this as a successful move?
I think the offense finds an identity. Right now, Nebraska does not have an identity on offense. They can't really establish the run. The passing game is kind of stalled out. And when you can't establish one, it's hard to do the other. There's just no identity offensively. So if they can find an identity, get to 6-7 wins, and start putting up more points and more yards, it's a good move.
If they get to 6 wins,
yes,
is that success?
It depends on what the offense does. Because you have USC, winnable game. Not saying they're going to win. You have Wisconsin, definitely a winnable game. And you have Iowa, which I didn't think after the Wisconsin game was winnable. After the UCLA game they played last week, I definitely think it's winnable. They could win all 3. They could lose all 3. But I could look at it and go, okay, what's the offense doing? Is it getting a better identity? Is the play calling better? Are they running the football more effectively? Are they passing it more? Are players more engaged? You can lose games and still find an identity. I know you're judged on wins and losses, but right now the offense is horrible.
Well, and if they play like they did against Ohio State,
yeah,
I'm okay with that. I mean, the thing that drives me nuts are the games like Indiana and the games like UCLA where you just saw this lackluster performance. Now, I say that in hindsight. You look at the Iowa-UCLA game and all of a sudden everybody's going, oh, maybe UCLA is not that bad.
Well, they've gotten better. There's no doubt that they've gotten better.
UCLA's record is nowhere near indicative of how good a team is.
And just go back and look at UCLA's schedule. I mean,
front-loaded. That was brutal.
That was a brutal schedule.
And we talked about that. The thing that surprised me about UCLA was, one, I thought Nebraska kind of got physically manhandled, and I thought it was entirely because Nebraska failed to show up. Then I watched the Iowa-UCLA game, and I'm sitting there going, okay, that was a beatdown. And
it was.
In the same sense that Nebraska got beat. I'm not saying like, yeah, we lost to UCLA, but man, Iowa really got their ass kicked. I'm not saying that.
No, they did.
I'm saying Nebraska got physically beat, but I thought they got physically beat because they just didn't show up. Now I'm looking at, okay, well, Iowa got physically beat also, And I think Iowa showed up. I just think UCLA has some really, really good athletic talent.
Yeah, the offensive line is playing much better. They found a running game, and we talked about UCLA's quarterback. I like it. Garbers is good.
He's a dual threat guy. The guy can actually. He doesn't look like your prototypical running guy. He looks like a classic pro style quarterback. He's that 6'3", 6'4", 215, 220 guy. Man, when he takes off, he can run.
What I like about Rule making the change is it shows true leadership. It shows that as you can be loyal to a point. This isn't a Bill Callahan, Kevin Cosgrove situation, and that is, you know what? He understands that you have to win at Nebraska. There are no excuses for not winning. You have facilities. You've recruited well. There's no excuses not to get to a bowl game this year.
Okay, so let's say they don't win any of these last three and they do not go to a bowl game, but you start establishing an identity. Raiola likes Holgorsen, likes the offensive wrinkles that he brings to this team, and next year you start to see the effect of having Holgorsen. Do you define success out of the fact that, okay, we got an O coordinator who's got a hell of a resume.
So and
it does make a change. It does make a difference for Nebraska, but we don't see that difference until next fall.
Okay, this is wishy-washy, but this is true. Two things can be true at the same time, and that is you could lose 3 games. The season itself would be a disappointment and not a success. But if the offense does start turning the corner, putting up yards, putting up points.
And Holgorsen ends up being a good hire.
Yes. So 2 things can be true.
Yeah.
That you could have a disappointing season and not making a bowl game, which I still think Nebraska's going to make a bowl game, but you can get the offense moving in the right direction and find some kind of identity. I think the offense that Dana Holgorsen will run for the next 3 games will look a lot different than it will next year. I think once he gets time to implement. The thing I was surprised about, we've seen a lot of offensive coordinators fired this year already in college football. There's been a number, probably 6 or 7 offensive coordinators have been fired.
I think you do see people pulling that trigger early now.
Absolutely, because you have to make a change if you want to try to change the direction you're going. The odd thing about Nebraska is they kept Satterfield on the staff. I found that odd.
Well, and maybe that's where the loyalty thing comes into play, where it's a case of, okay, you're still going to be part of the program. Let's get to the offseason. And I mean, I don't see them finding a role for him per se.
Because he's moved down to tight ends coach?
I have no clue. I got to be honest with you. I guess I hadn't seen that specifically.
Yeah, I think he's going to coach tight end and Holgorsen's going to do the offense and I believe the quarterback.
Okay. But that's one of those things where if you're a guy who is an O coordinator, because when he was at South Carolina, wasn't he the O coordinator there as well too? It's not like he was a assistant O coordinator or tight ends coach or quarterbacks coach there. He was the O coordinator.
Yeah.
So you've got a guy who's been through 2 programs as an O coordinator. Do you get docked down to tight ends coach and all of a sudden you're going to, this is great, I'm staying here? Or do you leave and move on and go and try and find another coordinator position?
I think you leave and move on. I think it'd be best for both parties if you finish out the season and then say your goodbyes. It's one,
and I think that's what happens. Yes. And I mean, I think that's why, in my opinion, that's why Rule kept him on staff. Is just, hey, listen, we're going to keep you on staff. You're still on the team. You're still drawing a paycheck. I'm not firing you now. But once the season's over, we're going to kind of reevaluate what the jobs are here.
Don't forget, if you are looking to wear Husker red to a volleyball game, a basketball game, or yes, the remaining football games, you can always get your Husker gear at huskerhounds.com. Scotty Strunk, you think I've lost weight? That dude has lost a lot of weight. It was Veterans Day, and Scotty's is a good veteran, and he served over in the Persian Gulf, I believe in the first Persian Gulf War. And I tell you what, he put his uniform on for Veterans Day, posted that on Facebook. It was super cool. And if you want to support a Nebraska business, if you want to support a veteran-owned business, then support Husker Hounds. They have all the red that you want, from T-shirts to hoodies to polos to anything for your garden. Winter's coming up. Christmas is coming up. So make sure to take advantage of all the great deals. You got 2 locations in the Omaha area, including the Superstore over there on 84th and Center, or you can shop online at huskerhounds.com. And Scotty, you can't miss him. He's a redhead, and he's looked like he's lost a ton of weight. You can tell guys that lost a lot of weight. And for everybody who asks about me, no, I'm not sick. I've just lost a lot of weight. And same with Scott. He's lost a lot of weight. But he also has been running one hell of a store for a long time. He's been doing it since the mid-'90s, and I've never met a bigger fan. He's a passionate dude, and he sells anything that you can even dream up. And if he doesn't have it in a store, if you ask him about it, He'll most likely go find it for you.
He can find it.
He can find it. Again, 2 locations and at huskerhounds.com. And then make sure, if you need legal representation, to check out our good buddy Connor Orr. Connor is a litigator and a estate planner, just an all-around good guy. He comes onto this podcast on a regular basis, at least once or twice a year. Talks a lot about NIL because he's a registered sports agent. And his law firm is growing and continues to grow to add more specialties and expertise to the service that you are looking for. So for more information, go to orlawgrp.com. That's orlawgrp.com, or email Connor at orlawgrp.com. Let's go back to Dana Holgorsen for a little bit. And that is, I like the hire. I do. Are we making, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I'm going to get a lot of people saying, oh, you're pissing on my parade. I'm not trying to piss on the parade. Are we talking about a guy that has had success under Hal Mumme, under Mike Leach, under Mike Gundy, who has maybe ridden the coattails of people he was under that makes him look better than what he is? Again, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I understand that. I mean, God, he had a hell of a run up there at West Virginia.
He didn't have a good run at Houston. But he had a good run at West Virginia.
No, and I'm looking at some of his stats right now. But I mean, God, that offense that he had with Pat White. I mean, well, and that's the argument with him, is that everybody's like, well, he's an air raid guy. I'm like, those pretty good numbers that came out of all those air raid offenses.
I think he played, Matt Rule twice and scored 96 points against Baylor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's massive points.
Yeah, he can put up the points. And the other thing is that his offenses, I mean, if you look at him throughout his coaching career, a lot of these teams he's had, I mean, at West Virginia, there was a lot of ground yardage there. That wasn't all through the air. So, I mean, a lot of people are like, well, how do you survive in the Big Ten if you can't run the ball? He ran the ball at West Virginia. And that was probably where you saw the most success that he had as a head guy.
Never won a conference title, though.
I get it.
Not saying you should be judged on that.
No, but at the same time, too, I think he's going up against some teams that were probably more complete teams with Oklahoma and Texas. And I'm not sure you're going to win a conference title if you don't have those defensive chops. And I don't know if he ever really did find a defensive guy. Those Oklahoma games between Stoops and Holgorsen were basically shootouts every time.
Yeah.
And those Oklahoma teams did have good defenses, and they were still shootouts.
Do you think Nebraska is more equipped to run or throw the football right now? I mean,
some of this is going to kind of depend on how Raiola is. So he had the injury against UCLA where it looked like it was a back injury. Looks like it's mostly a muscle issue. So today's Tuesday. I think today they were talking about, I haven't checked the news reports yet. They were going to have him practice today, but I think it's the first time they've had him actually practicing basically since the UCLA game. So if he's healthy, if he can play, I think Nebraska's best chances are throwing the ball. Now, I say that Nebraska's pass game has been kind of some short dump-offs to the tight ends, and then it's been screen passes, none of which have worked.
Yeah, just throw the ball sideways. Just keep throwing the ball sideways.
God, that's brutal to watch. But I think that's, you're not seeing Nebraska stretch the field. I mean, early in the season, I mean, they would go long just to test the defense and put them back on their heels a little bit. When was the last time we've seen that?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So I'd like to see somebody come out and just say, okay, well, let's see what we can do with what the talent we have in Lincoln right now and see if it makes a difference. It's easy to line up and just say, hey, we're just going to try and absolutely hammer a defense up front and try and get 2 to 4 yards every play and just by running the ball. At some point, you've got to pass it. You've got to spread that defense out. You've got to stretch the field a little bit. I don't know if Nebraska has an offensive line that can line up and just sit there and hammer an opponent for 4 quarters. Can they do it periodically? A drive here, a drive there? Yeah. But if an opponent comes up, if Nebraska truly can't pass and an opponent says, okay, fine, we're gonna come up and we're gonna put 7 or 8 guys in the box and dare you to pass on us. If Nebraska can't pass, if Raiola can't play, I'm really worried about our chances in terms of offensive productivity because I think Nebraska is going to have to figure out a way to stretch the field against USC, and I'm not sure where we're able to do that without Raiola.
Let's keep it on the offense. Let's assume that Dylan Raiola can play. Let's assume he can pass. How much different can Dana Holgorsen make? I mean, just if I don't expect
that's tough in like basically a week and a half, 2 weeks.
And that's what I'm getting at. Can you probably just maybe 1 or 2 plays? I mean, that would be different than what most people have seen for up to this year.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of the thing that I would hope to see is maybe kind of tweaking some of the routes a little bit, how the wide receivers are running those routes. One of the things that's been frustrating for me when I watch the games is that guys are not getting open. Now, receivers getting open, a big part of it's, hey, do you have a wide receiver that is capable of putting a move on a guy, has the speed or athleticism to get away from a guy, get some separation that way. But a lot of it is play design. A lot of it is route design. And I think we've got guys who've got the athletic ability to go one-on-one against some very good defensive backs and make plays that way. But we're not seeing guys remotely get open. And it looks like our offense is predictable. It looks like defenses know where our guys are going to be. When you look at some of the interceptions that Raiola's had over the past few weeks, it seems very predictable to me, and it looks like opposing defenses are going, okay, we know where this guy's going with these passes. We know how to defend this now, and it hasn't been an issue for the last month or so. I'd love to see Holgorsen come in and tweak things enough that defenses are going, okay, these routes are different from what we've seen earlier in the season. This is a little harder to defend. We can't just look at where they're lining up and know where they're going to go anymore. That's where I'd like to see a little bit of a difference. And I don't know if a week and a half's enough time to implement that or not. I truly don't. That's what I'd like to see. But that's what Nebraska's going to have to be able to do if we're going to win one of these last 3 games.
Yeah, whatever you do, if you're a fan and you've been yelling at Marcus Satterfield because he's a shitty play caller, you don't get that luxury within a week and a half of Dana Holgorsen.
No, you don't. And I mean, and that's the tough thing about this. And that's why I kind of keep circling back to what do you define as success here with this move? Because success might be, okay, well, if Holgorsen is the OC that we think he could be, okay, what if we don't see that successful implementation on the field until next fall?
Do you think there's a deal cut to where Matt Rule says, okay, I'm going to make you the OC, but I need you to give me at least one full season. So you get to finish this year out, and you can't go look for another head coaching job during the offseason. Do you think that? Do you make that ask?
That's a tough one.
Unless it's a Power 4 job now.
Yeah, I mean, you could put some qualifier in there that it's got to be a Power 4 head coaching job. You can't go Brian Kelly Chip Kelly rather, and jump ship from UCLA to go be the OC at Ohio State. You can't do one of those. It's got to be a head coaching job. But I could see something like that. I don't know. I mean, I think that's a hell of a tough restriction to put on a guy.
It is.
And Holgorsen might have been in a situation where he's sitting there going, okay, I don't want that head coaching heat right now. Let me go be an OC for a couple of years.
Well, when he took the Houston job, I thought that was interesting. I thought West Virginia was a better job than Houston. They got a lot of money at Houston. I get that. They were still in Conference USA at the time. And then, or was it the AAC? I forget which one it was. They used to be, they've been in so many leagues. I think it was the AAC. Forgive me if I don't know exactly. But I still think West Virginia was a better job than Houston. But you had a lot of money, a lot of guarantees, and so you took that. But winning at Houston is hard. It's really hard.
I don't know. I mean,
I know you're going to say, well, look at Kelvin Sampson, the basketball team. I get that.
Well, no, I'm thinking like Charlie Strong in football. Who was the guy who went to Texas then?
Texas A&M. Who was that?
Well, there
was a number of them.
Let's say, so you had Sumlin, you had Strong, you had
guys at Florida Atlantic now. Was at Ohio State. Names then went to Texas.
Names
blanking.
He's been everywhere.
Yes.
You had all these guys who came through Houston that were. It was like the Houston curse. Guys would go there, have an amazing 2 to 3 year run, and then they would go to either Texas or Texas A&M and just absolutely crash and burn.
But you're in a different league. They weren't in the Big 12 at the time. Big 12's not bad. Tom Herman, by the way.
Thank you, Tom Herman. So, you had Sumlin, you had Strong, you had Herman. All of those guys left, went to A&M or Texas, and just crashed.
Yes. Why is that?
I always thought Houston was one of those places where it's like, okay, you know what? I understand from a recruiting standpoint, you're going to have to play second fiddle to Texas and A&M.
Hell, you're playing second fiddle to TCU and now SMU.
Okay, well, maybe. Well, now you are. But at that time period, I wouldn't think that would be a real bad gig because I think you're still going to get a slew of really, really good athletes. You've got a large university. You've got a lot of money. You've got some good resources. I always looked at Strong and Sumlin and Herman, and I was just like, dude, don't leave. You're killing it there. You're the team that everybody's looking at and going, okay, you're always going to finish like 6th or 7th in the nation and not make the 4-team playoff, but you're going to have a legitimate bitch and moan as to why you didn't make it and why you should have made it. And you're going to go to a great bowl game, and guess what? Your alumni is going to love you. The university is going to love you. I was a little surprised when Holgorsen went there and didn't succeed.
So was I.
So that's the one little caveat I got with this is I was surprised that he didn't kill it when he was there.
Nebraska's not the only one making a change this week. Of course, they're going to USC, going to play in the LA Coliseum. And the Trojans this week, also coming off a bye week, are making a quarterback change. So Miller Moss is no longer the...
Maeva is. He's in.
So how big of an adjustment is that? You've got one team making an offensive coordinator change. You got another one making a quarterback change.
That one will be kind of interesting because, I mean, when you look at Miller Moss, he was more drop back passer, pocket passer kind of guy. And I don't think anybody was super worried about him killing you with his legs. Maeva's a guy who can. I mean, I think he hasn't run a ton. He's had very limited action this season. I think he's got like 3 runs and he's averaging 9 yards a carry. But he was amazing at UNLV last year. So, I mean, he had over 3,000 yards passing. He moved the ball on the ground with his legs as well. He was a fun guy to watch. If you watch some of those, I don't even know what conference that was, Mountain West.
That would have been Mountain West.
Was it Mountain West?
Yeah.
If you'd watch those late Saturday night Mountain West games, UNLV was a fun team to watch with him. Jumps in the portal, takes some money, goes to USC. He's basically been riding pine for the last 8-9 weeks until they finally pulled the trigger and make the change. It's a different look, and you've got a guy now who can run the ball. I mean, I expect him to do well. I mean, I was probably more, when I heard that they made that change, I was a little more concerned about him than I would have been Miller Moss, just because I think with him, you've got a guy that you can kind of, all right, he's not going to take off running. If it's a passing down, he's passing the ball. We can kind of pin our ears back and come after him a little bit. USC's offensive line has not really been their strength this year. It's gotten better as the season's gone along. A lot of young guys. They got some portal guys. Lincoln Riley
is in the hot seat.
Well, he is, but he's really, really heavily relied upon the portal since he's been at USC. And that kind of stuff, it can kind of come back to bite you in the ass. And another good example would be Norvell at Florida State. I mean, I'm watching the Rams game last night, and I'm watching Jared Verse tear it up as a rookie for the Rams. And he was a portal guy for Florida State. Florida State had a ton of success in the portal the last few years, as did USC, and Lincoln Riley was killing it. You have one down year in the portal, it can kill you. And that's what's happened to USC. The other thing that's happened, and we've talked about this a little bit, there's some positions on teams that, I don't care how good a portal guys you get, they're developmental positions, and the offensive line is one of them. Even if you get some absolute studs through the portal, you've got to put 5 guys together. They got to play together for a while. They got to work together, think together, move together. And if you don't develop an offensive line, it's not going to be a very good line. And he's basically redone his O-line there at USC year in and year out for the last 3 years. And that's finally come back to bite him in the ass this year. If you've got a quarterback, you put Maeva out there, who now all of a sudden you got a guy who's a run threat, that pocket breaks down, he's gone. And Nebraska's going to have to figure out a way to contain that. And that's a new wrinkle that I don't think they would have had to have taken into account if Moss was still the quarterback.
Of course, we're going to be talking about this game on Behind the Point Spread. It depends on when you're listening or watching this, because this is going to be out on Tuesday night. On Wednesday night is the live show of Behind the Point Spread with Scott Spreitzer. And this line's kind of gone a couple different ways. I think it opened at 10.5. It's down to 9.5 now. Are you surprised it's that big of a line? I am. I didn't think it would be. When I saw 10.5, I'm like, shit. And then 9.5, you're like, okay. But I thought it was going to be maybe in that 5 to 7 range. This was a little higher than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to ask Scott about it.
Yeah, and I'm worried about it because Vegas knows. I'm worried about it because I don't know if some of it's the move at quarterback with USC. Or is Nebraska truly that bad? I mean, when you look at, it'll be, talking to Spreitzer is going to be a little eye-opening, because when you look at things like power ratings, where this team stacks up nationally, where all of a sudden you're seeing teams like UCLA that have not had a good season up to this point. Now, again, heavily front-loaded schedule, I get that. But, I mean, man, it's not like Nebraska came out like they did against Ohio State and played great against UCLA. They did. UCLA physically beat up Nebraska. I don't know if Nebraska's as good a team as that 5-1 record showed. I think there was potentially a little smoke and mirrors there. I know somebody asked the question on my Twitter feed this week, looking back, I'm hating myself for forgetting to put this out there.
And you've only had one beer.
It was a great line. Asshole.
See that delayed response right there?
No, but it was the comment was, he goes, looking back on the season up to this point, who would have thought Illinois was potentially our worst loss?
That's fair.
I mean, right now, UCLA is probably a better team. I don't know if better team's the right way to phrase it. UCLA is playing better football right now than Illinois.
I would agree with that. And your best win is Colorado by far. I mean,
easily.
That is now
easily.
I mean, Deion.
But I think that's because Colorado's gotten so much better since the first part of the season.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, if they went out, they'll go to the Big 12 championship game, play BYU with a chance to go to the college football playoff.
What happened to the Fighting Matt Campbells, by the way?
Boy, they got beat at home by Texas Tech, and then Iowa State got got blown out by Kansas last week. So it's.
Sorry, I had to get my zing in.
You get your zing in.
I got to get my zing in against the Iowa team when I can.
Hey, by the way, you know where Dana Holgorsen's from, right?
Iowa. Where in Iowa?
Over on the eastern half of the state. He went to Iowa Wesleyan, actually. School doesn't exist anymore, but he played for Hal Mummy at Iowa Wesleyan.
All right, there you go.
There you go. So your AD's from Iowa? Your offensive coordinator's from Iowa? You're from Iowa?
And they all got the hell out.
It happens. It happens.
It does. The line is interesting to me because I would not have expected it to be that big. Nebraska has generally, I mean, other than the Indiana game, Nebraska generally plays okay on the road.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how USC comes out because Lincoln Riley he's already gone to in the Pac-12 when that existed, went to a conference title game, has coached a Heisman Trophy winner at USC. But I think him and Brian Kelly both. You're talking about two highly paid coaches.
Chip Kelly.
Or no, Brian Kelly who went to LSU.
Gotcha.
So I mean, I think.
I thought we were talking.
No, I think and I'm just off the brain here. I think Lincoln Riley's 23-10, and Brian Kelly's 26-12 or something like that, right? I mean, I would say that's not living up to expectations. A lot of teams would take that record. But I think those fan bases expect much more. And
these are programs that expect national title contenders.
Yes. Or at least to be in the mix. And USC is having a down year, and they've had close games, but they've kind of done what Kansas has done. Been in games, leading games, cannot hold on to the lead, and can't get an offense together to score.
Well, I hope they can't hold on to a lead against Nebraska. So,
I wouldn't be surprised. And maybe I'm the guy that said Nebraska can win 9 games. You're the one who said they're going to win 6 or 7, and it looks
I said 7.
Yeah, it looks like you're going to be right. I mean, I'm wrong.
If Nebraska beats USC,
I'm not shocked at all.
I think there's a massive amount of mental stress on this team in terms of getting to that bowl game, getting to that 6th win. I think that's a little bit of a stepping stone or milestone that's really, really weighing heavy on these guys right now. It's hard to get past that when you look at the last several seasons. I truly thought once they hit a point where, and again, I hope it doesn't happen against Iowa at the end of the year, my hope was they'd get that 6th win earlier in the year, because my logic was if they get that 6th win, they're going to get a 7th, maybe an 8th win just for no reason other than having the pressure off of them.
The best chance to get the 6th win, I think they can get it this week. No guarantees. The best chance is going to be against Wisconsin. It really will be.
When you look on paper in terms of team performance, it's just I really worry about Nebraska getting in their own heads.
And it happens. Who would have thought we'd be at a spot where just getting to a bowl game would be the moral victory? I mean, that's still shocking to me.
I'm the guy who said 7 wins get to a bowl game.
And of course,
baby steps.
Like always,
baby steps.
You are correct. I should always trust the doctor. He's the one.
Didn't you say 9 wins last year?
Yeah, I'm over it. And everybody thinks I'm the negative one. Everybody's like, "Oh, we hear you get your digs in." Well, Rob gets his digs in. We all get our digs in.
Trav does love Nebraska,
but the funny thing is, people think if you talk to Iowa, I've said this before, Iowa fans think I'm a homer for Nebraska. Nebraska fans think I hate them. I'm just so not emotionally involved. That's what happens when you cover a team for so long. You just want to ask questions and have a dialogue about it. And sometimes you say stuff that people don't want to hear, and that's fine. I can live with that. I don't hate Nebraska. I actually kind of root for them when I'm not watching Iowa, right? I mean,
we've talked about that.
I've got a vested interest here.
Which does crack me up. He does during Nebraska games when Iowa's not playing, Travis does text me during.
Yeah,
the
we're
game,
we're texting all the time. So I can honestly say, well, I can't say this because I do the Iowa call-in show, but I mean, I watch just as much in Nebraska as I do Iowa. I mean, I don't miss a game. I mean, Rob and I actually went to what game was that? It was the night game. We went to Field Club.
Oh boy!
I mean, Rob
that was Illinois.
Yeah, it was the Illinois game. We watched the Illinois game together.
You were bad luck. I watched a game with you.
No, it was all the fans that were yelling at the television, thinking they were making a difference by yelling at a television.
That's your people. You're the country club member here. Bitching and moaning about how much his kid's education costs. You're the one who's a member of a country club.
Oh my God! Look at see how he picks on me. He just takes the knife, keeps ripping it in.
Truth hurts.
You're such a pal. Oh, Dr. Rob. Hey, don't forget to watch Behind the Point Spread. If you're not going to watch it live, it's going to be on YouTube. It airs Wednesday night.
Information-rich source on college football out there.
Somebody wrote in this last week and said, "You guys ever going to make predictions?" Listen, I picked the game. Scott Spreitzer may not have money on games. And what he does...
Well, and he'll tell you, he's like, I've got this one in my picks this week, or I don't have it.
And don't believe that every gambler bets on every single game. That's not how Scott does it. He's very meticulous in the math that he does. Which
if you watch Behind the Point Spread, you would understand.
Exactly.
There's bets you don't want to make.
And he was supposed to do the homework on teams coming off bye week, so I'll remind him of that and make sure that he'll have that little tidbit of information. Go get your G2Fi shoes. G2Fi.com is where you're going to get those shoes. Use the promo code DocTalk20. Save yourself $20 off an order of $100 or more. So, big week coming up. We'll be back probably Sunday evening with another podcast. And also, if you didn't see the Doc's Diagnosis presented by Centris Federal Credit Union up on YouTube right now, go check it out. For Owen Justice, for Dr. Rob Zatechka, I'm Travis Justice. We'll talk to you next week on the Doc Talk Podcast.